Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. I am seeing that things should be online. So hopefully you can watch me normally ramble about because Rock is not here today. So I was left to my own devices to both lead the stream and give you a talk, and hopefully I can deliver on that. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brin. I manage the Discord server sometimes and help out with things in the game development community in Slovenia. And I will be giving you a talk today about community matters. You should be able to see my screen now. Okay, hello. I see people talking in chat. That's great. Awesome. So I'll be talking about community matters and why I think you should care about the community. And when I was writing this talk and as I was talking with Rok, we quickly came to the realization that, well, the topic title, Community Matters, doesn't really tell you enough, like what kind of a community am I talking about. So I want to clarify here, I'm talking about like your development community, the community of developers you hang out with, the people you have next to you, the people you hang out with, the people you make games with. So this is not going to be a talk about how to make a community around your video game. I'm sorry if that's what you were looking for. It's going to be a talk about how to make the community that you are in, that you are developing in, a more welcoming one, and how to get the most out of those communities. As like one of the people that manage the Discord server, and as one of the people that hangs out in the Facebook group every so often as well, I see a lot of people that are either actively participating in those in the virtual groups, but I do not see them a lot online, on offline events, or people that are just observing, and they always seem to be somehow participating in the community, yet they are not essentially active in the community. So when talking about community matters here, I will be talking about why you should try to be active in the community, what sort of benefits you can get from this. And I'll also be talking about what we, like every single member of the community, can do to make the whole community better. But first of all, like, who am I? Why should you listen to me? I'm Brin. I make video games. I also study video games. I'm currently doing a master's degree of game design at the IT University in Copenhagen. And all of the games that I make are made among people or with other people. And that is, I think, an important takeaway and something to consider when you are making games. Even if you're making a game alone, you are going to be making a game for people, and there are probably going to be people in your life that are going to influence this game. So your game is always going to be a part of a development community, whether you're a solo developer or you have a team that you're developing games with. So when I'm going to talk about matter, right, like I already said, right, I'm going to be talking about matters as a verb for something to be of importance as to why communities are something we should care about. And I'll also be talking about matters as a noun, as a type of substance, something that we can create, something that we can do to make a better space for everybody. So at the start of our development journeys, we're all usually alone. We don't usually start making games because we have a group of people that want to make games. We probably played games and we decided, oh, could we do something like this? Could we make our own MMORPG? Could we make our own Super Mario, right? All of these grandiose ideas that we have at the start. And it's perfectly fine and perfectly normal to be alone at that point. You are researching and you are trying to find out if other people exist who are doing these things. And you're sort of testing the waters if this is something that is for you. But over time, as you learn how to do things and start trying to learn how to make games, I am of a belief that you should try to find a community. If for no other reason than for the fact that people are going to help you broaden your horizon and help you realize what games can be and what sort of games you can make. And alone, you will never be able to reach this. As alone, you will be trying to find only things that you yourself like. And you will be stuck in this sort of self-referential group. You will create a circle jerk for yourself. So trying to find a community should be important. And if you don't buy this from the very small explanation, let's go over a few points as to why a community should be something that should matter for you. First of all, it creates discourse, right? If I have people that I can talk to them about the games that I'm making. This allows for bleedings of opinion. This means that like if somebody disagrees with me, they are open to voicing that. They can challenge my views, and that is how we create better games, by actively being willing to challenge ourselves on our views and try to improve them. We shouldn't consider something that like our own opinions as the best, but communities allow us to do this. They allow us to have an open discourse with people. And without the community, that is a lot harder. And again, we get stuck in this like self-referential loop. If you like something, that doesn't mean that that thing is going to necessarily be liked by other people. Or if Johnny from the community likes something, that doesn't necessarily mean that I will like it. And we can talk about these things, and we can figure out, well, what would be the best course for me or for Johnny or whoever else in the community to take, right? So it also allows us to just like talk to each other and make friends, which is also really nice and a cool part of communities, right? It also allows us to have cool events. Like, for example, this talk that you guys are getting and Game Jam Plus that is going to be happening very soon, right? Like, these are events that are possible only when you have communities and when you have people that are able to organize things in those communities. If there was no audience for this, if we didn't know that there would be people willing to participate in Game Jam Plus, we couldn't organize Game Jam Plus. If we knew that there would be no people watching these talks or being interested in them, we couldn't really go and start preparing these talks for you, for all of you. When it comes to events, they are also a very direct way of learning things, especially when it comes to conferences. If you attend the Slovenian Games Developer Conference, or you go to some other thing nearby, like the GITS conference that's going to be happening in Poland very soon, this is where you get these talks that directly try to teach you about things. And you get to talk to people that are trying to teach you these things. Like, you will have a chance to ask me questions after the talk if you want to. And this will allow you to not only listen to like a lecture, if you want to consider this a lecture, but also to then get direct questions in about the lecture and hopefully be able to learn something. And again, events are a place where you get to meet people and you get to directly see what sort of things they are making. A lot of times you will meet other fellow developers there. You will meet players at those events as well. And most importantly, you will be able to meet people who also do things in the same or in a different way than you are, to again challenge your views or to refine your skills by talking with somebody who is doing similar things to what you are doing. Communities are also important because they provide a support structure. I mentioned friendships here and creating relationships that are meaningful a few times. And the most important, or like one of the easiest things to see when it comes to support groups inside of communities, and what we can see also on our Discord server, is that there is technical support, right? Like, we have, I think, 3 channels that are sort of dedicated to getting help with certain decisions, whether that's like game design decisions, whether that's how to implement something in Unity decisions, whether you're having issues trying to get your game on Steam, right? In a community of people, you can always go there, and there is a high chance that somebody already went through this process before you. There is a high chance that somebody already tried or published a game on Steam, and they can help you out with filling out paperwork. And trust me, there's a lot of paperwork. Like, 2 days ago, I had to fill out like a Steam agreement, and I'm currently waiting on a contractor from America to verify my contract or not. And it's a pain in the ass, and it felt like signing a contract because it is a contract. So it's like these sort of things take time, and having experience in them, or having some access to somebody who already has experience in them, it is greatly beneficial, right? Instead of Googling about like that one thing that you have no clue about, you can always walk up to somebody on a game jam and ask them, hey, you seem to know how to do stuff in Unity or Godot or whatever hell of an engine you decide to use. Could you help me figure this issue out? And you have access to this one-on-one support, I suppose, that we can give on each other. But besides just technical supports, there is also emotional support. And I'm doing quotations here with my hands. because this doesn't necessarily mean that I will be there for you when you have a mental breakdown, but it more or less means that we will be able to relate to each other and through what kind of struggles we go through. This can very easily be seen when a lot of developers get to a stage with their game where they aren't satisfied with what they're working on, and they aren't sure if they should give up or if they should keep going. A lot of people go through this sort of cycles, and we can talk about this sort of stuff. If somebody's having issues about like feeling accepted or feeling validated about their games, this is the sort of stuff that we can talk about as well. It doesn't just have to be a product-based support that we have, right? It doesn't have to be questions and discussions only about things that produce good. We can also just help you get through things that are sometimes hard. And game development, especially if you're trying to work on an indie title, is something that does involve like quite a bit of emotional ups and downs, or very easily can do that. Maybe you just got rejected by the publisher, right? Like maybe you just are going through that slump where you have to polish the game and it feels like it's never going to end. These are things that we have experienced before and that we have talked about and that we can talk about together, give each other advice on, but also help each other get going. Another thing here that, at least for me, is very important is inspiration. I enjoy it when people around me are making cool things and people around me are making different things. I remember a few months ago, we had an indie developer showcase as a part of this stream, and we were able to just see like what a wide variety of games people in Slovenia are making. We saw, I remember just car games, because there was a ton of car games. I think like 4 out of 12 games involved cars, but there were also games about space, and there were adventure games and all sorts of different things. And the fact of the matter is, when you meet people, when you see that these are actual people and not robots that are making these games, it is a lot easier to humanize the developers behind them. And it is a lot easier to feel like you too could create something similar to this. You too could make a game that is as good as what other people are making. And it is also nice to show things to people, right? And importantly, what people are showing is ultimately going to be different than what I am showing. I like making short arcade games, right? Somebody else might like making long narrative games, while a third person might want to create a casual puzzle game for a mobile phone. And this, again, broadens our perspective as to what games can be and as to what sort of influences we should be getting from games for creating our games. It is also that we're creating games for different reasons. And since we are a community of developers, we can talk about this. I want to make games because I feel like they're a nice way of expressing myself and an art form that is extremely unexplored. Somebody might want to make a game because they want to make the player feel a thrilling experience, while somebody else wants to tell a story through an interactive form, right? We all have very different reasons for creating these things, and discussing about them and seeing these different things just allows us to understand the medium better. It allows us to see what can be done, even if we are not doing this. I believe that like there is this sort of like passive influence that always happens with things that you get to know, right? Like even if you do not make adventure games yourself, maybe having a discussion with somebody who makes adventure games and them telling you what sort of issues they're facing and what sort of design decisions they had to take would later down the line influence you about how you approach your action game or your puzzle game. And there will be like a little spice of an adventure game inside of it, whether that is like intentional or unintentional, whether that's just like in how you're designing how you're designing the level select screen, or whether that's going to be in how you're going to present the characters that you want to use inside of the game, right? It is very, like games are or all media is very much a remix of everything. So we are influenced by all things. And having this like wider range of influences creates a more varied and a more unique experience in what we are creating in the end. So we were alone, and here were some reasons as to why we should not be alone as developers, right? So now we're together. And when we're together, the next logical question would be, well, how do we stay together? How do we make this together worthwhile, right? Like I talked about inspiration, I talked about support, I talked about cool events and so on, but all of these things, they do not come out of nothing, right? Like we need to create some sort of substance, we need to create something for this to matter to us. We need to create matters. We need to create events to go to even have cool events and to listen to talks. Or we need to create co-working spaces to have a place where we can work. And so what I would like to encourage you to do when you are attending events, when you are trying to be a part of when you are a part of this community, is to be selfless, to help out others, to be willing to take time off when you are at a game jam, and to help that one person that came and asked you, how does the collision system in Unity work, right? Like, I do not understand this, please help me. And if you do, go ahead, take some of the time off and help them out. Try to think how you would like to be treated while you were while you have been starting as a member of this community. And especially when it comes to newer people joining the community, the best thing that we can do is give them help. And that way, like, we get to, one, encourage somebody and empower somebody in a medium that is extremely creative and extremely expressive, but also we get to keep them in the community. And hopefully one day they will also be able to help others and help others with this medium and help them express themselves. So give to others, be selfless, because at the end of the day, this is going to give back to you as well. It is some sort of selfish selflessness, if you want to put it that way, right? If we create a friendly community, if I'm willing to help somebody out, if you're willing to help somebody out, then we can create a community where you too can be helped, right? And at the end of the day, we all benefit from this. But it's also when you are trying to, like, find these people that are going to help you, don't just go to them with the intent of helping each other. Don't just think of trying to reach a common goal together. I believe that it's better, like, it's great that we all have this common interest of making games, but it's also cool if we start talking about it to each other and figuring out, well, what do we like outside of games? Maybe I like soup and maybe you like soup too, right? And then we can be friends because we both like soup. But maybe you also like apples. And again, I will get a new perspective on life and a new perspective on media or things outside of games, whether that's like books or sports or whatever it is that you do when you're not trying to crunch out that next game you're going to put on itch.io. We get to know each other as people and not just as game developers. So I would strongly encourage you, like, the game jam is starting, what, in 2 days or 3 days. I would really encourage you guys to not only think of that game jam as a game jam that you go on and you compete for trying to create the best game as possible, but as a place where you are going to meet somebody and where you're hopefully going to meet people that you are enjoying spending time with. For me, some of the most fun I had at game jams were not necessarily game jams where we made games that got the most views on itch or the most downloads or the games that were the best. It was game jams where I actually got to meet people that I still hang out with today. It was game jams where we spent half of a day eating pizza together and brainstorming around a whiteboard because we weren't sure what to do, but we got to see each other. We got to figure out what is it that these people like. And then as people, as more friends than before, we were able to work on a thing together. And, like, what's better than working together with people than people that you enjoy hanging out with? So consider not only just going for the prize, going for the product, consider the people around you as people and not just as a means of reaching an end. So yeah, make friends. I really like this quote from Derek Yu. This is the creator of Spelunky. Like, I try to draw like the character from Spelunky. I'm not sure like how recognizable it is, but I like this quote from him where he said that he was always proactive with development communities. This is paraphrase. It's not exactly like this, but it was something along these lines, that they tried to be proactive about the sort of communities they wanted. For those that don't know, Derek Yu, creator of Spelunky, I think it's Atlantica, or something along those lines, Spelunky 2 and UFO 50, they were the founder of TickSource, which was sort of the TickSource was a forum and a blog post, which was sort of like the granddaddy of indie game development in the early 2000s. It was a place where developers from all over the world got to hang out for one of the first times, right? And what they mean when they said that they wanted to be proactive with development communities was that if there was a community that they wished existed or something that they wished they existed, but it didn't exist, they would try to create that. Obviously, nobody has enough time to start their own game jams about like some super specific niche theme that you want to do. But try to think of it on a smaller scale, right? Like, what is something that you would like to see in a community, and how can you contribute to that? Would you like to see somebody would you like to have some people give a talk about sound? Like, you can reach out to me or you can reach out to Rok, and we will try to find somebody who can do that. Do you think you can give a talk about sound effects in video games and how footsteps make your game feel 10 times better? Then you can give that talk. And like, again, you can reach out to us and we'll try to help you facilitate it. If you don't like me or Rok, you can at the end of the day just host things yourself, right? The point of the matter is, if you think that there is something missing, don't just think that there is something missing. Voice out your opinion. Try to think what you can do to get that thing back in the development community that you would like to be a part of, right? Like, would you like us to have playtesting events together? Would you like us to have more showcases? Would you like us to have more networking events, right? Like, what can you do to help contribute towards this? And how can we create this community better? And the keyword here would be we, for me, because it is people collectively that are creating a community. It is people collectively that is a community. And therefore, it's sort of our responsibility as well at the same time to be proactive inside of the community and to try to create a community that we like. And if I like a playtest, if I would like a playtesting event, then I should try to do something to get that playtesting event to exist, and not just think, man, it would be great to have a playtesting event. Especially in Slovenia, where like the game development community is very small. And at least like for me, comparatively to Copenhagen, I would say that it's not as it is not like it has not existed for such a long time, and it is not as active. So there are a lot of things that I see here that I think to myself, well, this would be great if we had it in Slovenia. So, and I would like to have these things, and that is why I'm trying to create those things as well. So don't forget about the potential that we have, even as like a smaller community. We can put in the effort and we can make this better together. Because yeah, community, hopefully, as you agree with me, matters. So take good care of it. And if you want to check out what I'm up to, I'm currently working on 2 Steam games that should be released both around December, January. There's my Twitter page. You can look at my itch where there's a ton of free games that you can play. And every so often, I also write a blog post, so you can check out my website. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy on taking them. But at the same time, I understand if there aren't any questions, because this was more or less just me ranting about what I believe communities should be and how I believe people should behave in communities. So feel free to drop questions in the chat. Otherwise, I will awkwardly stare here into the camera for about 5 minutes or so, and we're gonna end the stream at that point. So again, if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in YouTube or Facebook or Twitch. I don't think anybody is watching on Twitch. Apparently, we have a Twitch channel, which I didn't know. But I got to click like a cool button here that basically made us go live pretty much everywhere. And we're also live on Twitch and on Facebook. I can tell you now that we have 0 people watching on Facebook and 1 person watching on Twitch. So there's almost no Twitch presence and absolutely 0 Facebook presence. Oh, by the way, we have a Discord community. Speaking of communities, I should have mentioned that earlier. I'm gonna drop a link for it inside of the YouTube chat. If you aren't a part of it yet, make sure to join it. A lot of events get posted there. It is a lot more active than the community that we have on Facebook, in my opinion. And it is a lot easier to communicate about things because it is real-time chat and not just like threads that people create and then post under. So yeah, join the Discord community, ask questions if you have any questions. I'm gonna take a sip of water, and if we don't get a question in the next 30 seconds, then that's going to be it. It's a lot more awkward with okay. All right, so I got a question from Maya on YouTube, and they say, when did you know you wanted to be a game designer, and was there any specific inspiration that really made you made it ingrained in your mind? Yeah, yes, this is it. I want to do it. So I don't necessarily want to say that I want to be a game designer. I just want to make games, whatever that means in the end, whether that means that I'm designing games, whether that means that I'm making like juicy animations for somebody else's game. I just think that it's a really cool medium. But for me, I feel very strongly about communities, because a part of why I'm making games right now is the Slovenian games development community. Because one day randomly, like literally randomly, I saw a event on Facebook that was titled Game Jam. It was Ludum Dare 44, I think, or 43. The theme was Sacrifices Must Be Made. And at that point, I was studying visual arts, and I thought that I would be a UI designer, because I thought, oh, interaction is a cool thing, like this feedback loop of I give a user something, they click on things, and then they give me feedback back, whether this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. So I thought, okay, maybe I could go and make UI for some game. I liked making UI mods in World of Warcraft, so I thought this could be interesting. Let's see how this goes. And I went to that game jam, and I ended up doing everything but UI. I ended up doing level design, and I ended up doing art and animations for that game. And I had an absolute blast. The people that I worked with were very friendly, and they made me feel very welcome. And I thought, man, I should do this again. So I went to the next game jam, and then to the next one. And then at one point I started thinking, man, I want to make games like outside of game jams as well. And I just started attending online game jams with people that I randomly met on forums or Discord servers. And I attended as many in-person game jams as I was able to. And at one point I just realized that this is extremely fun, and it would be really cool if I was able to do that for a living. So that's what I'm trying to do now, like do this for a living, because it's really, really nice. So it's more like, so to wrap it up, it was kind of this like community and the fact that like people were very friendly that made me want to keep doing these things, because I like working with people. And I think games as a medium allow you to work with many different people, whether that's sound designers, whether that's graphic designers, animators, programmers, and so on. How do you fit time to work on 2 STEAM projects while doing a master's, plus all the other stuff that you do? And want to tell us more about your STEAM projects? So I think that's Pedro from my master's project, from my master's actually. One of these projects is like a project that I get to do as a part of university, which is why I get to fit it in while I'm doing a master's. The other one was a project that we were working on the last semester, and now we're working on it like very part-time, 2 days or 1 day per week. So that is the question. No Red Bull, thankfully. I don't like energy drinks, but not a lot of sleep, and a calendar that looks like it doesn't have any free time, basically. But for me, it's like something that I'm extremely enjoying, and that is why I find this very fulfilling. I feel, though, that it might not be the healthiest thing to do as many things as I'm doing, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend juggling 2 STEAM projects and doing a master's degree at the same time, because while it is extremely fulfilling and I do love doing what I do, it is extremely exhausting as well. It feels like a good kind of exhaustion, but I think it's like important to juggle what you're doing healthily so that you do not get burnt out. I know that like during the last semester, I had a similar situation where I was working on a lot of projects. I was doing, like, outside of my master's degree at that time, I was also attending animation lectures. And at one point it was just too much and I was not able to continue working on any projects, and it ruined me for like at least 2 months. So I don't recommend getting burnt out. So juggle your time, budget your time well. As for the projects that I'm working on, one project that I'm working on is called Tilt. It's going to be a game about freedom of expression in a movement system. Another one is called one-button bosses, where the idea is that you're fighting bosses while only pressing one button. Both of those games, now one of those games has a demo on my itch page. Another game is in a 2 prototype. The other game is in a 2 prototype state to be on my itch page yet, but you can find some GIFs on my Twitter if you want to. But yeah, so budget your time well, and wishlist my games on Steam when they appear on your Twitter feed. That's a sum up for that question. Right, any more questions? So I should probably do this. Hello, so you can see me better. I think there's like a bit of a delay between the stream and the chat itself, or like what I'm saying and what is appearing on screen. So I'm waiting for a little bit more. And if not, then thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for the questions, Maya and Pedro. How do I do this? Boom. Here's my Twitter. Go follow me on Twitter. If you have free time, unlike me, then okay. Then there was another question from Micha. Thank you for your. Okay, wait. Boom. There we go. Okay. So Micha asks, thank you for your presentation, Brin. I think you really gave me a new perspective for caring about existing and contributing to a community. I really held more for myself and didn't really comment or interact with anybody in the gaming industry. Okay, Miha, that is like perfectly fine as well, right? Like people work differently. And I think like one thing that I probably should have mentioned at the start is this is what works for me. There are people who are more introverted and there are people who are more extroverted. But I feel like a good community can like acknowledge both of these kinds of people existing, and everybody should be able to feel welcome inside of this. I can just personally say that for me, it is one of the best feelings to be able to stand up from a table and walk up to a next table and see somebody else working on a completely different game there, because that's what I personally find very inspiring, seeing people work on many different projects and seeing what sort of things this medium can create. All right, there's another question from Maya. In terms of Slovenian games community, I know there is plenty of different moments that are very memorable, but is there one particular that has stood out to you, you have been most fond of, and why? I think it's just like all in-person jams. Like I shit you all not, over the last year during Corona, the thing that I missed the most was being able to go to game jams, eat pizza with other people, be in a room that smells of fucking toast and Nutella and bananas, and watch a movie together on a projector at midnight. I think like those are, it's not necessarily, again, it's not necessarily about the games that we were making at those game jams. It's just like the feeling of this community, this feeling of being able to stand up and walk up to some other table and see somebody else working on a completely different project. And then also watching some cringy anime at 1 a.m. on a projector inside of a closed down shopping mall. Like those are great experiences, and I will never forget those. So if any of you haven't attended an in-person game jam that's organized by Game Slovenia yet, go and attend it, because they're really, really amazing. And it's also one of the things that I miss the most about not being in Slovenia right now. So when I come back, I'm for sure going to the first game jam that I can come to. Okay, I'm gonna take the last questions from Miha. Miha is saying again that he's trying to open up and break his like bubble and become more social inside of the community, and he asks, how do I handle social media as a whole? I don't handle it well. That's how I handle it. I have around 200 muted words on Twitter to try to get all politics out of my Twitter feed. So I am maybe not the best person to ask about this. I would just recommend, don't think about community as social media. Think about community as like the in-person community, the in-person connections that you can make. During Corona times, I understand that this is like a bit different, right? But I would suggest attending events, and that is like ground zero for creating, like being a part of community. You do not need to be active on a Facebook group or inside of our Discord server. Just try attending events. That's where you meet people. And once you start caring about those people, once you meet somebody you click with, you're gonna start wanting to be active on the Discord server or inside of the Facebook group, because you're gonna want to keep in touch with those people. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about social media. You shouldn't, like, life is not about likes and followers. It's about the more genuine connections that you make. And I can tell you that, like, even when your tweet goes viral, and you are able to make like some social connections online, these do not matter a lot. They exist. You get like likes and it feels nice. It's dopamine for one day, but then tomorrow, you didn't meet any of those people. Maybe you got like 1 or 2 or 3 comments on your each page because you got 500 likes on Twitter, and that's about it. It is like the more in-person connections, the more like granular level stuff that makes communities worthwhile and important. But yeah, thank you everybody for the questions. Thank you for listening to me ramble. I'm very hungry, so I'm gonna go eat something. And I hope you have a nice evening. And I know Maya's from Australia, so I hope you have a nice morning, Maya. See you all on, not this game jam, but hopefully some game jam in person in the future in Slovenia or somewhere else. Have a good day.